The honour code of the Greeks, of course, was followed up upon this premise in a similar to the way in which kleos meant fame and glory, time meant honour and recognition, eidos meant shame, and dolos meant deceit and trickery. But it came to be known that due to ancient Greeks' ambitious stride towards the development of excellence from their understanding, deceit and trickery was not seen as a negative trait as we would see it today. It was instead seen as a form of intelligence, the ability to outsmart the opponents. And the fact that they didn't moralize this in this sense is actually very telling of how their society functioned. So it was most obvious that these ancient societies never seemed to prioritize or allow for mediocrity, because their social norms were based on a particular set of virtues. Thus, falling for the deceiver would be done by those of a more foolish nature present in the society, or whatever it would be in this instance, and that the lesson would be learnt that the outcome, in this case, is more revealing and important than the act itself, because it would reveal the type of individuals and how excellent they were in their society. It would in return reveal the fools of the town, if you will, reveal the characters who are not living up towards that excellence of virtue to attain honour and recognition in the first place. Glory and fame for the culture. Our society is very much, if we take this complete understanding, this complete architecture, to the degree I've explained it and related it to our society, it is very much inverted compared to these past civilizations, due to one core principle being overturned and flipped on its head, being that everyone is equal in relation to all things. This is a mentality that we have, which is of course incorrect, which is wrong, which breeds mediocrity into the society itself. Performed by what Nietzsche would call the preachers of equality in his book Thus Spoke Zarathustra, called them, and that what is right, what is justified and honourable is maintaining the line of difference that exists between people, so that they can rise up as individuals, as sovereign entities of their own making in nature, instead of submerging them into an equality that is flattened, a flattened equality that doesn't allow for the individual representations of unique ability. Into as I was saying, an equality of mediocrity and sameness, whereby people are not deemed different and capable for change and new forms of creation that are so desperately needed in our modern society. And one last thing I want to talk about here is what the Romans did in the face of the enemy, which is very interesting. When they expected possible defeat or complete defeat by the opposition that would possibly be overcoming themselves. And what they would do is a form of self-sacrifice in war called devotio. This was a mental form of physical sacrifice whereby they would give into their creative lower energies of power. They would kind of sacrifice themselves to these lowering energies, were not moralized. These were just the lower energies of man. And they would dedicate themselves consciously to these lower powers that, when unleashed, would contribute possibly to victory, because it would be seen as a supernatural force. It was seen as like this supernatural force in addition to the Roman state itself, or the army of the legion that was enacting upon it. Like a self-sacrifice for victory, of course. This was an element within the metaphysics of war, but it's something we can take on today in a different way, in a different creative aspect, with a different vision, on a personal level, to ask ourselves, am I overthinking? Am I over-rationalizing, over-analyzing? And am I being this individual that is controlled by my fears, which are being controlled by my over-rationalizations within the theoretical mind of possibility or possible outcomes that may not appreciate or may not fall towards my desire of affirmation or what I want as the outcome. that I need to instead fall into my lower energies, of affirming action into the world instead, that my desires are not to be castrated by things like fear that are occupied by the rationalizing priestly mind of cognition and conception. To instead accept something like devotio in the face of personal fears, to overcome them and become an increasingly better individual.